You know those promos? This fighter is going to have the biggest fight of their life. For me, this is that kind of, I guess. It's the biggest overshare of my life. I think, I don't know, maybe it doesn't even come close, who knows. I can be very open about how fandom and nerdy things are a way that I neutralize some of the bigger feelings that I have, especially regarding things that are mental health related. I've had some type of mental health struggle pretty much since I was really little. The first time I remember struggling with anxiety, I was maybe 4 years old, and I was having a conversation with my grandmother about death. I told her that I wanted to die when I was 7, so that when I passed away and I saw my Aunt Denise in the afterlife, I'd be younger than her, because she really liked feeling like she was the big kid, and she passed away when she was 9 years old. My grandmother called my mom crying, saying that heaven wants to not be alive anymore, and I had to clarify, no, that's not what I said. There's a system, there's a reason. There's a whole hierarchical thing I'm coming up with here to like help Denise. But yeah, just weird kid logic. That's how I came out the gate. And I asked a lot of questions. I've always been just painfully curious. But yeah, I was mainly fixated on death and the afterlife and just how does the world work in general. It wasn't really crushing me, and I don't feel like it made me depressed. A little anxious, but fine. But I will say that chronic pain entered the picture for me when I was about 6 years old. It started with chronic migraines and then eventually worked its way into radiating pain in different parts of my body. And that's when I went from existential kid to someone who was genuinely clinically depressed over time. 25 years before I got close to a real diagnosis for what kind of chronic pain condition I had. And it definitely has put me in some situations where I'm like, dang, I don't know how to keep going. I've walked out of a really bad pain flare multiple times, questioning existence and not even sure why I'm doing this. You're told your whole life that your body is a temple, and it's, well, why does my temple feel like it's falling apart all the time? And I'm working so hard to protect it and maintain it and respect it. And I've tried the antidepressants, mindfulness, meditation, prayer, Reiki, massage, physical therapy. I've tried everything, and I've had many physical therapy set up in my home for 10 years. And I've spent so much money on medical stuff. It is overwhelming. And all of it compiles, and it honestly starts to make you feel like hot garbage. But I love nothing more than life itself. And getting to exist in it is such a gift. Fandom plays a big role in just my general joy. And a lot of us nerds, we carry the same through line, I guess. We're lucky. We found something to be passionate about. And we find community. And yeah, there are bullies, but for the most part, it's a great space to be in. A few months ago, I deleted all my old social media or like paused it or whatever, and I put all my focus into just nerdy stuff, and it's been awesome. The last few months have also been really hard, and I hit a low point, and that low point is actually part of why I started this whole page. I was reading Batman Rebirth, and that was part of the spark for me wanting to lean more into nerdy content after never being a content creator in my life. So I genuinely am doing this for me, and like reading Batman Rebirth and just seeing the way that this fictional character is sharing his mental health struggles. That's so powerful. I really hope, and I'm sure they do, you really just hope that the writers know how much healing they give the world by sharing that type of thing from these characters that we view as very strong. Beacons of like hope and strength and resilience, having them admit, yeah, I've really struggled with why am I alive and they're not, and just processing grief and all these other things. I don't know. This was the whole thing for me. I loved Batman Rebirth. Anyway, like that low point is part of why I really wanted to dive more into nerdy things and just like how regenerative nerd culture can be. And I also wanted to get back to more creative roots instead of just being in survival mode all the time. Because the difference between surviving and creating is basically the difference between rebirth and just finding a way through. Finding a way is fine, but when you lose sight of the creating part, you can kind of start to question like why you're doing any of it. And that's the actual purpose behind the interviews that I'm having, understanding people's why and sharing it. If you've struggled with your mental health, maybe you find a little solace in a little community and hearing these creators and getting a little inspired by their journeys. I will say transparency is awesome, but it does take a lot of vulnerability. And that vulnerability opens you up to things like unsolicited advice, unsolicited pep talks, but also lots of great friendships and conversations as well. I've had the opportunity to talk to people that I would normally never cross paths with, and I love that. And maybe it's partially because I'm a Y2K kid, so I grew up on AIM, talking to people I shouldn't be talking to, but I love the mystique of it. And I do need my IRL community as well. I never want to be someone who's chronically online, so I am trying to regulate that relationship I have with the internet. But I will say, at one point in my life, the internet was like probably the most unhealthy place for me to be. And now it's part of my health. Like it's part of this thing that like brings me joy and makes me very happy. And like I feel like I've gotten more good out of it than bad. And I never thought that I'd be able to say that. But anyway, back to the conversations. I'm talking to creatives that are working professionally in the art world somehow. And every single person's career journey, art or not, creative or not, is so damn nonlinear. But you kind of just want to know how it works, right? You want to know how they got there. And like, is that possible for me? You know, I will say after the conversations I'm having, I'm convinced that nobody just went to art school and got a job doing art. And the stories I'm hearing, like, it's so cool when something resonates with me. But it's like wilder and so motivating when people are messaging me saying that something that was said in the interview struck a nerve with them. I have like 30 subscribers on YouTube, like that's it. And people are still reaching out saying that something that was said meant a lot to them, and that is so powerful. I will say I've reached out to people for interviews. I've been told no a couple times, but I love a good no. Rejection is redirection type of thing. Every no is just sort of helping you stay on the path to where you're meant to be. I genuinely feel like a no is the universe trying to clear the way for you. And some no's can be done hurtful, some no's can be very respectful, but it's still just a no. And no one's hurt my feelings in this space, by the way. I'm just saying in general. No's don't always feel good. It's just clearing the way. It's like for the thing that's meant for you so that you can keep heading to where you're supposed to go. I've used this analogy a lot in life. It's a lot like Tetris, and luckily the screen's a lot bigger in real life, right? You don't have to be perfect in this limited time frame because the screen is so big. And when you're moving up the line, trying to figure out how to make the pieces fit together, you're not focused on all the spaces below. Not if you want to keep going and make it work. Like, you got to focus on what's in front of you and what's ahead. Because if you're constantly living in the past or constantly so far in the future that you're missing what's right in front of you, you're going to mess up that game of Tetris. I don't know. I'm like mid at Tetris, so maybe someone has a different theory, but that's mine. You got to focus on what's stacking up, not the gaps below where it didn't work out. Back to the sort of mental health, reading books, comics, etc., exercising, dancing, writing. These are things that I need. And when life makes me have to table them to focus on being in survival mode and dealing with the pain flare-up, I will say it's been very devastating, but one thing that has saved me over and over is having a good conversation. And I can point to so many specific conversations in my life that made me a better version of myself or build me up right when I needed it or tore me down when I kind of needed that too. Like, it doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it doesn't have a lot of merit, but sometimes it does. And it's a way to help you grow. Opening yourself up and talking to people, it's scary. We have a lot of power over each other, and the biggest power is definitely like the power to make people feel and the power to make people think. Like, feeling and thinking, like, what else do we do, you know? But honestly, the power that matters the most and the biggest responsibility we have is the responsibility to yourself. So if there's one small thing that keeps you moving forward and isn't going to cause irreparable harm, obviously, like, I'm not going to say, you know, if kleptomania makes you feel great, keep doing it. I don't want to say that. That could cause irreparable harm. But I will say that if it's something that's regenerative, even if it's buying a pack of seeds and trying to grow a plant, didn't work, but you can learn from it. Maybe it's trying a new hobby or whatever, and it can be as, you know, affordable or not affordable as you want it to be. I would definitely lean towards affordable. There's just so much you can try. Finding ways to occupy yourself to learn something new. It is something that will help you. I find it very hard to believe that trying to learn something new, if you have that sense of wonder and you can just appreciate the process, it's going to make things so much better for you. And find something small that just helps you move forward. I've had a lot of hobbies, but the thing that's always helped me the most is conversations. My mental health has not been in the best place. I got to a point where I was considering an intensive outpatient program. My pain was horrendous and physical therapy was helping to a degree, but I just still felt like something was being taken from me. And it can feel that way when you're like canceling plans, can't dance, can't exercise, can barely read because looking down is doing something, the pain radiating and all that other stuff. So the things that I'm really passionate about, the things that are healthy for me and make me feel good, help me manage my pain, there's like a wall between me and them at times. And I have to get through that. Beyond having conversations with people, I did make the decision to try Spravato for depression. And I will say it is a massive time commitment, twice a week to start. And for some people, it maybe only takes 3 hours out of their day at a time. But for me, 5 to 8 hours out of my day easy. And that's tough. I budget my time the way you budget money. I write down how many hours I have available, and I have to sort that out, put that somewhere. It was not easy to do. Time is so hard to come by right now, and it's about to get a lot better. But anyway, it's an easy 5 to 8 hours out of my day every time I go. So twice a week for the last month has been like this. Side note, one time I answered a phone call mid-treatment. Never again. Never again. That was so embarrassing, and I don't think that they knew, but it was still horrendous. What did I say? Anyway, but back to the reason why I'm sharing this is when you take Spravato, it raises your blood pressure, and I am on ADHD meds. Can't imagine why. ADHD meds also raise your blood pressure. You can't take your ADHD meds around a Spravato session. It's very, very, very dangerous. When I'm doing Spravato, and usually the day before and a day after, I don't take my ADHD meds. With my meds, dopamine's regulated, I'm chill, I can hit deadlines, no problem. Without them, it's like a big struggle, and it's made editing harder, keeping track of conversations I'm having, just staying focused on what the goal even was of why I started this. Then you add physical therapy, and I see another therapist twice a week for EMDR. I do regular checkups with doctors. I'm at 4 to 7 doctor's appointments a week on top of grad school, working full time and trying to keep this podcast alive. And I did graduate, so no more school, but I digress. I will say that I'm not trying to complain about going to the doctor at all. I'm super fortunate to have insurance with a chronic pain condition and autoimmune issues where my body's actually trying to eat itself a lot of the time. I don't feel like I have a choice but to have insurance at all times. If I, didn't have a job that provided me with insurance, I would still be having to figure out a way to have it, even insured. These medical bills are crazy. I am very, very grateful. It's just keeping up with everything is so challenging. And I've had some delays recently that I don't feel good about. And it stinks. I know every single interview is realistically between 7 to 12 hours of time for me. Again, back to my time budget. The conversations leading up to it, the interview itself, the editing, and different people require different amounts of time. So it could be more than that. But it's never less than 7, and that's a guarantee, especially if I need to read something beforehand, which most of the time I do. And I actually keep a reading journal, and I annotate everything I read, and sometimes I'm better at it than others. But annotating what I'm reading is also important to me. It's an important part of the process for me. I actually had to break down and buy a new laptop because my old one, the RAM just could not keep up. So it's been really tough. There's been the challenges. Even just buying a new laptop, you're going to invest in a new computer. That's interesting. What do you think you're getting out of this? And for me, it's joy. For me, that's enough. Also, this has been really rewarding. And I will say that I've been given a lot of grace by the people I've been interviewing because they are really great people. It's not just interviewing someone and being like, wow, your career journey is really cool. And that's awesome that you do art. You're super talented, obviously. It's, yeah, Heaven, went through this and went through that, but this is where I am now. And these are the steps I took to get there. And here's something you can tell people. Here's some advice you can give other people. I cannot promise you that anything I build is ever going to be a raging success. But what I can promise you without a doubt, I can absolutely promise, is that something that you say is going to get back to someone. It's going to help them spark something. It's going to be like the spark that they're missing. And if you're listening, maybe not everyone will strike that nerve for you, but someone will. Someone will if you're listening. I got hair in my eye. Oh my God. But something someone says will resonate with you at some point. So I don't know. Look for that spark. I get a message after every single episode of someone saying, that's what I needed to hear. That was the thing that I was missing. This is the advice I was looking for. And the person that we're having a conversation with, because there's a few people in the room. It's me interviewing, facilitating. The person I'm interviewing who's bringing it. They're the ones delivering the thing that needs to be delivered. They are the messenger. But the other person in the room is that kid who needs to hear the thing. And that kid may be a kid. That kid may be an adult who used to be a kid. I don't know. I like to think about that kid from the Midwest or the South. And I don't want to say anything disparaging about regions because I'm from the South and I was raised in the Midwest. And you're just in these places. It's not LA. It's not Chicago. It's not Miami, New York. But you're surrounded by creativity and you're surrounded by art and you're surrounded by people who are having to be so creative to figure things out because these are places where the industry options are a little bit more focused. There's options, but it's not quite as vast as going to LA and seeing the type of jobs that are available out there. So you do have to get really, really creative. And, the type of school that I went to, the teachers had to work their butts off to give us any type of creative outlet. But yeah, and I was surrounded by people passionate about arts. And I also went to Oklahoma State University, which is an ag university. And, maybe you don't associate that with the arts, but I knew amazing artists. Like my best friend, she's an artist. She went to school there and she has a thriving art career and she's a full-time artist. And kids see that. But sometimes they really need to be reminded that we see you, kid going to the school or adult who went to that school or was from that place. You don't have to have gone to this perfect art school with this program and this reputation. You can come from anywhere and find a way to have a creative outlet that helps you and helps you process things. And I think a lot about the things that kids see, because there are a lot of kids who've seen horrible things. And I think that the best ways to process pain come through creative means, rather than turning it on someone else or turning it on yourself, to find something regenerative and artistic and creative. That's so healing, doing something that's not damaging to process and get through things. And again, that could be a kid coming from anywhere, from any background, any socioeconomic status, cities, towns, whatever. We all see things and we all experience things. We go through grief, we go through pain. So having a way to process that's creative is so powerful. I don't know. The human experience is so complex and it's really painful, but connection is so beautiful and art reflects that. And it's a great place to process it. There are not a lot of ways that I can add value in the world. I'm just a really curious person who's tried to figure out how a lot of things work. And at the end of the day, in an apocalypse, I'm kind of not that helpful because I don't think that any of the skills I've gained are going to do us a lot of good. So that's fine if you don't want to let me in your little camp for the apocalypse. But in the meantime, my value add can be talking to good people doing good things that are trying to make this space, especially this nerdy space, a haven, like a really nerdy, healthy, safe haven, and trying to make the world just a little bit better, one person at a time. So thanks for listening, team, especially as I stumble my way through making this thing that I am making now, I suppose. So, all right, thanks.